So here's my disaster. All this stuff has been packed up in a box, and my wife has decided that she wants to get it out so she can put it someplace where she can marvel at it. The problem, of course, is everything's full. Now, this is a room that I've basically been using as an extension of my shop for the last year, and I have been informed that I'm going to clean it up and organize it so she can sit in it and watch television. The walls are full. So I'm thinking I'm going to build a shelf to go on top of that doorway so she can put all her look pretties. The problem is I don't want to spend much money on this. If you haven't figured out by now, I tend to be really, really cheap. So let's go out in the shop and see what we can come up with. So I went to the big box store to pick up a cheap piece of wood to make a shelf. I've got these brackets that I bought or got, I don't know, years ago. And I'm thinking one of these on each side of that doorway. We'll hang the wood over just a little bit and we'll paint it. We'll have a nice shelf. The problem is a 1 by 10 by 8 foot spruce board was $23. It's insane for a piece of cheap number 2 pine. But hey, the wife wants it, we're going to do it, right? And then I walked around to the construction lumber and I found, you ready for this? This piece right here, a 2 by 10 by 8 southern yellow pine for, ready for this? $9.89. And I thought, okay, run this through the planer, clean it up a little bit, be a nice bulkier shelf. These will still fit. So I know about right like that. And I'm thinking I want to round these corners somehow, but I'm thinking about possibly doing some type of an ellipse on this and then using the router, give me a nice pretty edge on it. I think it'll look pretty nice. Let's see if we can make it happen. Make the wife happy and do a quick, easy, inexpensive project. So stick around and let's make it happen. So like I said, we've got to clean it up a little bit. It's in pretty good shape, but let's run it through the planer a couple times. Let's flatten it up, clean off any saw marks that are there. I'm not going to bore you guys with watching me do this. I did about 3 passes on each side and got a pretty straight board. If you don't have a planer, you could have done this with just a sander and some 80 grit sandpaper. The planer just makes it easier, and the wood coming out of my planer is just super smooth. I did have a little problem with snipe on the ends simply because that's an 8-foot board, and that planer really isn't set up to handle long boards like that, as heavy as it is. But I was able to hop around and grab it so that it didn't bear down and get the cutter blades, and it came out really nice. So now we're over to radial arm saw. This is what I love my radial. We're going to do some other work to those ends here in just a second, but you just can't go wrong with a radial arm to do this type of work. I want to do some type of a detail on the ends. I don't want just a square shelf. So I pulled out my compass and scribed a couple circles, leaving enough room that wherever I put those brackets, there would be enough wood to cover them. And this is what I came up with. So my initial idea was to cut this out with the jigsaw. But that wood is hard, and it didn't cut real well. I was able to cut the curve, but then trying to cut that straight line and make it nice and straight was going to be a pain. So I decided to pull out my track saw and cut that straight line with the track saw. So after I got the straight edge cut with the track saw, I grabbed my jigsaw just to finish up that rounded corner that I couldn't do with the track saw. And now we get to do our favorite task, sanding. With the sanding complete, I was looking at that edge, and I want to do something a little fancy on the edge. So first step is a 1/4 inch round over bit, and we're going to round what will be the top edge of the shelf. Next step, I change routers and router bits to route a profile on the bottom edge and up the side. You'll see it here in a second. It'll pop up in the bottom of the screen on the end. You can see if I can get you in real close here so you see that profile. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Now, clean this up, and I'll bring you back for the next step. I was concerned that just using those brackets was not going to be strong enough to hold this shelf up. So I decided to drill for some pocket holes from the top of the shelf that'll go through the back of the shelf, through the drywall, and into the header that's above that door frame. So about every foot along the shelf, I drilled a pocket hole to help with the mounting. You'll never see them because of how high the shelf is. And they made it pretty solid. At this point, we're ready for one last quick sand, and then we'll be ready to paint. Now, I only sand with 120 grit sandpaper on this. It's going to be painted, so I find you really don't need to do any more than that. But a good sand across the whole thing, top and bottom, and then
we're going to paint. And it's going to be black, which is going to cover any imperfections that are there. Yes, I know you don't like black, but that's what the boss chose. So I'm going to skip ahead. I'm not going to show you the painting. It's pretty boring, just like sanding. And we'll skip ahead to the installation. So here we are. There's the door frame. I grab my 4-foot level and I'm going to go up and extend. I want that bottom of that shelf to be pretty much flush with the top of that molding. So I'm going to extend some lines out and put those brackets just a hair above that molding for the bottom of the shelf to sit on. Here's the brackets installed. Now these brackets had a little keyhole gizmo at the top, and I put a screw in and hung them on that. And I decided that probably wouldn't be strong enough, as heavy as this shelf is. So I went ahead and drilled down toward the bottom and put some 3-inch screws in, and there's framing in there, so I hit the framing, so I've got nice solid brackets. Next step was throwing the shelf up on the brackets and then running some 2.5-inch pocket hole screws into those pocket holes that I drilled. Down, it didn't feel that it needed it. The shelf is very, very, very solid.
And there you go, guys. A quick, easy shelf to make my wife happy. Hope you enjoyed it. Bye.
I hope you enjoyed this video and it gave you some ideas of things you can do around your house. If you did enjoy it, would you please consider subscribing and drop me a comment? Tell me what you liked, what you didn't like, and we'll see you next week for another project.